Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Liners, a series centered around key influencers and players in the performance marketing space. My name is Joey Liner with Liner Connections. I'm real excited. I got a big conference coming up this week, LeadsCon, which I kind of commonly refer to as the Super Bowl within the performance marketing space. But right before taking off for that event, I'm super psyched to have my good friend AC Evans on. We've had to reschedule a couple times, and I'm super psyched that we got this pinned down, especially before LeadsCon. AC, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
How you doing, Joey? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for coming on again, man. I know you guys super busy. You got a lot going on, and you just came back from a big trip with the family. And we'll talk about that. But um, you and I go way back.
Oh
In
yeah,
the time machine, we're it's like dog years in our space. You know, we worked together at Double Positive, where I was
yeah,
co-founder, and you had started Drips, of course, to be the dominant player in SMS engagement with consumers, and we found ourselves working together a lot with clients in multiple verticals because we were both key service providers trying to help them optimize their workflow with their leads. And I learned a lot from you, and you taught me so much about your ecosystem. And we were always trying to get that common goal to increase client, engagement and conversion rates. And here we are today. Probably there's some variance to that, right? But we're still working, still grinding through 2024. Been a long time. I think so I probably met you in the 2000s, in the mid 2000s, somewhere around there. But man, good to see you, brother. I really appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody a little about Drips. Most people in the performance marketing space know Drips, but it would be nice for you to say it in your own words, and
sure.
how's the business evolved, since you started it?
Oh man, well, a lot of different stages, that's for sure, right? A lot of it, every year it feels like we're reinventing ourselves and figuring out new ways to do what we do. But yeah, in a nutshell, what we do is what we're calling conversations as a service, right? Which is not dissimilar to what Double Positive did, right, back in the day. Uh, Doing it with call centers, I think was the dominant, way to do that previously. And, we've been kind of putting all our eggs in SMS, obviously. And it's working really well. The big difference being, when you got somebody on the phone, right, they're ideally ready to be closed, ready to be talked to, ready to be worked. Drips, what we do with our conversations as a service or conversational outreach is we communicate with people for a longer period of time
Right.
asynchronously, right? So we're having these conversations. You've seen a lot of these, right, with our
Yeah.
various different businesses we've been in together. The conversations will last 2 weeks, right? People are asking, basic questions, trying to learn a little more, scheduling calls, rescheduling calls, getting busy. They're not busy. They need to, so that's really what we're doing is we're conversing with people on their own terms, which, and we're pretty unabashedly SMS, and we're doing it over a long period of time. And that's pretty difficult to do at scale, right? So I mean, I've seen on some of our competitors' websites, right? They've got some hundreds of thousands of conversations under the belt. We did that many yesterday, right? So we're past the I think something billion mark on conversations, which is pretty exciting. So it's lots changed. So what's changed? So we've always helped people get people on the phone and drive them to a call.
Yeah.
Really, the use cases have been the thing that's just been exploding and getting segmented and further segmented down, because what we started with was a lot of lead gen, right? A lot of agencies, warm transfers, got a lead, get them on the phone, warm transfer at the
Right.
end, our job's done, right?
I
So
remember
that's
that's how we
what we would
started. Yeah.
call, yeah, that's what we would call traditionally prospect nurturing, right? That then those agency deals eventually got us to some of the marketplaces, right? In like the insurance space and some of the insurance call centers. Those relationships eventually got us to the I would say like the smaller, more nimble insurance carriers, right? Like Gainsco was a really early Drips enterprise client many years ago. They bet on us in a big way, right, to handle their comps. So through them, it stopped just being prospect nurturing. It was prospect nurturing and quoted not sold and welcome campaigns, right? And win backs and pre due date, billing notifications and post billing due date billing notifications and pending cancellations and and right.
Right.
So as we progress through the stack, meaning like working more with the enterprises and the bigger companies, the use cases just start unfolding, right? And the thing that we learned unequivocally is as you get to the bigger companies, right? Because like you've seen some of our case studies with some of the big insurance companies, right? Like we work with 5 out of the top insurance carriers now, five out of the 10 top healthcare payers now. All of them have much different needs, right? But it's interesting, like the progression of I would call us like started as a lead gen startup, right? Like you can't just leapfrog into enterprise. You have to like have some proof points. So it took us getting Gainsco to get Liberty Mutual. And it took us getting Liberty Mutual to get the next big carrier. It took us getting that big carrier to get the following 3 or 4, right? And it took
Yeah.
our experience in insurance to get a small payer in healthcare, right? To get a small
Right.
Blue Cross Blue Shield. And it took the small Blue Cross Blue Shield to get a bigger payer. And it took a bigger payer to get the biggest payer, right? So like
Yeah.
you got to kind of like inch your way up. And we really did it by way of these use cases, right? Like figuring out what else people need. So in healthcare, which is a big focus of ours now, it's not just prospect nurturing. We're helping people do comprehensive medical reviews, health risk assessments, Medicare redetermination, and the list just goes on and on and on. It's pretty crazy.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like you were brought into, you were doing correspondence with consumers through AI in its early stages of what we would,
Yeah,
what we would, as the general population, consider AI use case, like where you were engaging with consumers to set up an appointment or a callback. And now it sounds like, especially like where you've evolved with multiple use cases within some of your clients, is long conversations. And it's like not just quick, hey, let me get you on the phone. These are consumers that want to engage and interact via SMS, right? Like, and they're getting their
that's
answers
right.
to their questions, that through that methodology. And it seems like you've gone deeper and deeper and deeper with strategically with your clients over proving out that they can use this as a good methodology to communicate with consumers.
Yeah, and then look, a lot of times the end result is still they get on the phone, right? But yeah,
Right.
there's sometimes we can, get qualifying questions, get people out of the list that shouldn't have been in the first place.
Right.
Especially with HIPAA and healthcare. A lot of
Yes.
times they have to talk to somebody. They have to, go through, reviewing what kind of medicines they're taking and whatnot. But it's still, it's pretty arduous to get people to commit to doing these things. And that's really the key differentiator, right? There's a lot of conversational AI companies out there. I mean, there's thousands of them, right? Thousands of
Yeah.
chatbot, thousands of conversational AI. The big difference between Drips and all of them is they are in the inbound space, right? They're in the how can I help you space. They're in the when the consumer wants to get a hold of a company space, right?
Right.
We're in the when the enterprise needs to get a hold of a consumer space, which is
Yeah.
which is difficult. It's expensive to send direct mail.
Yeah.
Email is really hard nowadays, right? With all the changes Gmail and whatnot have made. And phone calls, people just don't pick them up anymore, right? And that's just getting worse and worse and worse year over year. So how do these enterprises, move the needle when it comes to engagement? And they found that texting is a very tasteful way to do it if done right.
Yeah. Amen. Well said. If done right. And um, back up for
Well,
a
that's
second
that's
in
that's
time.
our tagline. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all about how you say it, right? Like there's so many, I mean, all these rules, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're doing a billing message, in Oklahoma versus Massachusetts, like there's different touch points you have to do. Certain states you can do third party disclosures, others you can't.
Right.
We eventually, I don't even know if you know this, but this is kind of a funny story. Like eventually we had to build a whole rules engine, like a full, we call it the drips rules
Yeah.
engine. And it has hundreds of these state level, federal level best practices, TCR, TCPA, 777 collection rules, HIPAA rules, all these different
Yeah.
rules, because it's all cross sections depending on the industry, depending on is it a first party lead or a second party lead, depending on the level of consent you have, depending on the use case that you're doing, is it billing or is it claims or is it administrative or marketing? Like it became too much to try to keep straight. So we had to build it into the software, which
Yeah.
was that was another kind of fun thing to try to scale as we got through these big enterprises.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's essential for so many different points that you just stressed, like obviously location, state specific rules, federal laws, is insurance specific, health insurance specific. What was it? Is it informational? Was it, new
Yeah,
customer acquisition?
marketing. Yeah.
All these things come into play for sure in decisioning engine. So how you told me this a while ago, but how did you get to building out, like where did you get to drips, from what's your story, dude? Like how did you
Oh, like
guys
the
build out
origin
drips? Yeah.
story. Yeah, the
Yeah.
origin story is a fun one. I think it was actually at LeadsCon where we met uh, our co-founder. So it was. I've had a lot of projects, right? I've had a lot of businesses. I've been
Yeah.
a serial entrepreneur since I was. I think I had my last real job at 16, maybe I was 17. I can't recall. But since then, it's been all online, right? I was webmaster. I was an email publisher. I was
Okay.
I was at LeadsCon as a publisher. Many lifetimes ago, right?
Okay.
Driving
Yeah.
traffic to like Leadnomics or whoever, like I
Yeah.
don't remember her. So I grew up in that world, right? And anyway, we had a handful of different projects, me and my co-founder Anthony Greco, our
Yeah.
CTO, and we were at LeadsCon working some lead generation aggregation. We had a company called Lead Science, right? And we bought and sold leads and calls and warm transfers and all that stuff. So it was just a pretty thoughtful aggregation system. But anyway, long story short, we met a buddy of ours, Tom, and he had a need for something we had existing. We got to working together. We made some money together. And then he was big into the student loan consolidation stuff right, way back in the
Ah,
day, right? Back with the Obama Act and all that. And he
yeah.
had a CRM. He was actually using Bobberdo, right? He had a CRM, which was a great CRM. I love those guys. And one day he couldn't figure out why, but his texting system broke. We found out later on. I think he just got blocked because he was sending the same message over and over and over, right?
Yeah.
But he comes to me and he's like, "AC, hey man, I need you to help me fix the software. My texter broke." I'm like, "Oh, well, what was it doing?" Right? And he tells me, he says, "Well, every day at noon, it takes my yesterday leads or whatever he's getting on Facebook lead ads, right? And it sends him a text. It says, call us back on 188-555-1212 to help, fix your student loan or whatever." And I said, well, I can't really fix somebody else's software, right? But it sounds pretty simple. And
Yeah.
I was a programmer by trade, right? So I'd written lots of software. I designed websites for many years. So I built him kind of a PHP script that was about this tall, right? It was like a 4 foot tall. It was a really badly coded thing, but it worked. And I sent him a text. I'm like, hey, set up Twilio and give me your creds, right? And he's like, what's Twilio and what are creds? I'm like, well, Twilio is a texting company. I need to hook up to them to send your text messages. Go put your credit card in there. Send me your login and your password, right? So he does all this, and I built a script, right? It attached to his database. It pulled down the next 100 records. It would send 100 text messages. It would refresh the page itself, and it would grab the next 100, right? And so on until it ran out of people to text. Then it would sit there and wait for more. And what happened was the day before his stuff broke, he was doing about a 10% transfer rate, lead to transfer, right? And he was doing pretty good. He was getting lead ads for like 50 cents. This is way back in the day when lead
Right.
ads was really, really early, right? It's a very cheap way to acquire leads.
Yeah.
And with my system, he was converting at 15%. So he's like blown away, right? Actually, I skipped kind of a funny part of that story. So it took me about 12 or 16, something like that, hours to build this, right? And I sent it to him at 4 a.m. my time, and I sent him a link in his email, and I said, "Hey, when you're ready, open this up, and it'll be working." And he got it at like 1 a.m. because he was in Laguna, right? And he opens this thing up at 1 a.m. and it just sits there and goes refreshing, 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 refreshing. And he's like, "What the hell?" It's like, this thing ain't working. So he calls me, and I'm trying to sleep because I've been coding for
Yeah.
16 hours straight. And I'm like, what, man? And he's like, bro, this thing ain't working. It says refreshing. I was like, oh, you didn't open that, did you? He's like, yeah, I opened it. I was like, close that thing, and he closes it and he goes and looks at I can't remember what his call platform was, but it was like a Ringba or whatever, right?
Right.
And he's got like 150 people on hold, because there's no buyers at that time, right? So they're just sitting there on hold. He had sent out like 15,000 text messages in those
Oh
like two
my
minutes
God.
yeah at 1
Oh,
a.m, so this is way before we had any rules engines.
yeah.
But that's how it started. And he was all of a sudden converting at 15%. He's like, dude, what did you do? You get me a
Right.
50% increase in contact rate. And I said, well, all I really did, kind of back to drips or our tagline, it's all
Yeah.
about how you say it. All I did was I improved your message, right? Your message kind of sucked. It was very broadcasty. Hey, call us back at 1-888-555-1212 to da da da. So instead, I said, hey, and I inserted Joey, right? Hey, Joey,
Yeah.
and I said who it's
Personalized
from.
it. Yeah.
Hey, glad you found us on Facebook. I put some recency in there, put some context in there, right?
Right.
I'm here ready to help you whenever you are. I'm here until this time, right? Call me back. Here's the number to my desk. So all this personalization, all the psychology, all the authority and context and social proof and recency and all those other things that we all know about in marketing, and it got him a 50% lift. And he was just like, dude, this is amazing. I was making a lot of money yesterday. I'm crushing it today. So he's buying more and more and more, right? And so he's running the script for some days, some weeks, I can't remember. And he calls me. He's like, hey, dude, I need you to speed this thing up. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I'm buying so many leads now, right, that it's not going fast enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's PHP. You can't. It's not a threaded. It's not like you can just add a bunch more threads, right, and just send more, right? It's not that. It
Yeah.
wasn't scripted that way. He's like, well, I need to go faster. You got to figure it out. I was like, all right, let me think about it. Hang up the call. I think about it. I call him back like 10 seconds later. I'm like, hey, I got it. All right, you know the window that you got to open up? He's like, yeah. I was like, go there, copy the URL. He's like, yeah. I'm like, open up a new tab. He's like, yeah. I'm like, paste it. He's like, yeah. I'm like, hit enter. And then it's just two windows going boom, boom, refreshing, refreshing, refreshing. So I was like, you're going twice as fast now. You're welcome. So that's where it started, and then we
Dude.
iterated, right? Like
Yeah.
we took him from 15% to 25% by changing the message. He was sending the same message for 3 days every
Yeah.
day around the same time. So then I started changing the times of the days, right? And the message that we sent. So at 5 p.m. we'd send a, hey, we're only here for another hour. Can you call me back? Right? Add in some
Right.
scarcity, right? And then the next morning it'd say good morning. And the next day at lunch it would say, hey, hope I caught you at lunch. I got a break between calls. You want to talk about your consolidation? So we ended up long term, we ended up at about 30% transfer rates from that model. And then this is the coolest thing that happened. So then he starts telling me, he's like, dude, I got people. And it's funny, you go all the way back. It was people like Adam Stay. Adam was one of our
Yeah.
biggest clients, right?
Yeah.
Because he was running pub club leads, right? He's like, dude, I got guys who would pay to use this. How do I get them to use it? I'm like, dude, it's not a system yet. There's no login. There's no security.
Right.
It's just a script that I built for you. He's like, well, you gotta build it, man. I got guys that'll use
Yeah.
this. And Adam was one of those early adopters. And so anyway, that's when I brought in my co-founder, our co-founder Anthony Greco, who's a real
Yeah.
developer, right? He's an architect, so he rebuilds the whole thing. And he tells me, and this is where we kind of fell into conversations, right? He tells me, he's like, hey man, your error log is filled up. And I was like, what do you mean? What error log? He's like, well, every time somebody texts back, it's hitting Twilio. They're looking for a response handler on our side of the system. You don't have that set up, so it's adding it to an error log, right? And this
Right.
thing was like gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs of inbound text, right? So it's literally millions of inbound text messages. And me and Tom at the time were like, what are people saying? People are texting back because we weren't conversational then, right? It was
Right.
just push. It was just
Just
one way.
transactional text. Yeah.
And then we start looking at these messages, Joey, and it's like, call me at 5 o'clock. I can't talk
Right.
now. I'm at work.
Yep.
I don't want this anymore. Great. Call
Exactly.
me now. And then we started looking at what the experience was, and it was bad, man. It was like,
Yeah.
call me now. We would never call him, right?
Yeah.
Or don't text me again, and we text him right away, or how much does it cost, and we would never answer the.
Yeah.
So that's when it was just like, oh wow, like this is, we got him from 30% then to when we started handling conversations to 42% from the same users that were 10%,
Game
some months
changer.
earlier. Yeah,
You guys
and
are
that's
pioneers.
yeah, man.
And
That's how it all started.
awesome. Epic. Epic. I love it. I mean, we had kind of had we backed into the building of the worm transfer business. And it was because one of our clients kind of just pushed us on, getting more consumers on the phone. And, we had to push leads through a call center to do the worm, we called it a hot transfer at the time, if you remember. And then the industry kind of
Yep.
preferred more of the warm language. But
Well,
dude, that's
your
cool.
guys were hot though. Yeah.
That's a cool story, man. That's really fucking cool. It. Thank you for what you've done for the space. I think in the lead gen community, you've really helped us get better. And I want to talk about that. Actually, there's the leads counts coming up. This show's been, you talked about, that's how, 2008 or
Yeah.
nine, whenever you first started and you were coming in as a publisher. Um, Drips has kind of pulled away, I would say, from sponsoring per se at some of these events like LeadsCon or Lead
Right.
Generation World. Um, is there a shift more towards, because you're so enterprise heavy and deep with a lot of these insurance clients, is that kind of where your team has to be, spending most of their time today? Is that the main
Yeah,
reason for it?
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty simple, really. Like we're some people think we're not at LeadsCon. We are at LeadsCon. There'll probably be a dozen, team
Right.
members there taking meetings with our existing clients, meeting with the right new prospects. The truth of the matter is, like, yeah, like we have a lot of great clients that go to LeadsCon. A lot of the insurance carriers are there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the home service companies, some of the financial services, even some of the healthcare focused type companies like the TPMOs. A lot of them are there.
Yeah.
But the group that are there, they're already our clients, or they already know about us, right? So we're
Right.
trying to, with our big spend. So we still spend plenty to go to LeadsCon, right?
Yeah.
And ideally get people on stage and that kind of thing. But we're not doing the mega booths like we once
Yeah.
did,
I
because
remember you
that's
had
when we
that
were trying to.
monster booth.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, that was great. That was fun. We did that with oh man, what was that? That was with Whitetail. It was with Whitetail, Anomaly Squared, and Call Criteria. So we had like
Right.
that big 50 by 50 thing.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, no, just we still do those types of booths, but it's at we're trying to make bigger splashes in new ponds, right? Um,
Yes.
and the right team for the right audience or for the right show. So for LeadsCon, it's more AMs and CSMs and that type of team going, less new sales members.
Perfect. I'll miss you out there, but I know you got a lot of travel you got to do for throughout the spring and summer yourself. So you can't be at all dances. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
we
and the
got
other thing,
yeah,
with LeadsCon, I mean, all the work I put in with some of the regulatory work. Like, candidly, like the industry, like we got a lot to figure out still, right? Like, you
yes,
got the FCC one-to-one stuff. Uh, some companies taking it very seriously, some companies
yeah,
not even testing yet, right? So that's another problem that one of the reasons maybe that we don't try to make as big of a new splash and acquire new people is like we're in this shift, right?
yeah.
Where
I
you and
agree.
I and many others worked really hard on trying to bring self-regulation to the industry, and
Yeah,
whatever, too little, too late. It is what it is. Everybody tried. FCC brought down the one-to-one, right? So I had the 555. We had other
yeah,
plans, right?
yeah,
And even that people pushed back, and unfortunately what happened. So now what is happening is I think we got probably about another year for people to like build and implement and rework their flows to figure it out. And some companies are going to do well and some companies aren't. And then I think we can kind of lean a little bit more back in, because the thing that a lot of people don't understand about texting is like it's all regulated now. Like it's all regulated by AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon, and they have full visibility into the whole stack where once they didn't, right? So for what the FCC is demanding in
yes,
January, we've had to follow that for the last 18 months, right? Because AT&T has been demanding it because the FCC has been telling them they got to do it, and they got
right,
safe harbor to do so. So we've kind of been in this one-to-one world
yeah,
already, right? And a lot of companies just don't, they're not ready to make that pivot yet. So we really just wouldn't be able to handle their traffic anyway. So that's a
right,
whole nother kind of thing, right? And again, in a year, I truly believe, and we work with a lot of these clients still. A lot of the big public
right.
marketplaces, a lot of the big agencies, like they're still great clients of ours, and they are aggressively testing and figuring this stuff out. When again, some companies they're just kind of sitting back and waiting and hoping on, kind of hoping things change between now and then, I guess.
Yeah, here we are. It's April. I'm glad you brought that up because I was literally going to ask you that next because you're in the thick of this. You've been working with the carriers for a while now. But here we are. It's April, and the rule is supposed to go into effect at the end of January, and that's going to be here pretty quickly. I know that there's some petitions out there to put a stay in place by the
Yep.
Insurance Marketing Coalition. We got to watch that.
Yep.
There's comments that the FCC is willing, they're going to, put out a message soon from small businesses, anybody that's under 500 employees. So maybe there's a carve out there. We just got to see how things play out. But I haven't seen, and I'm eager to hear this at LeadsCon too, is we haven't really seen any forceful change yet in business. I think there's so many people that are talking about it, or did talk about it like early in the year. It's kind of like quieted
Yeah.
down a bit. It'll surface back up for sure at the shows. There's been a lot of webinars out there. I get that, but I agree with you. We got to see how it plays out. But direct one to one, you guys will be able to handle that, right? Because if it's somebody that's going directly to a client's page or control messaging, I mean, that will be in compliance.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, first party's easy. Second party, meaning big insurance carriers buying from Quinn Street and EverQuote or whoever, like they're going to figure it out, right? Like one to one doesn't mean exclusive. That's kind of a
Yeah,
misnomer, right? It really just means that the consumer knows who's going to be contacting them. So maybe they
exactly.
had to click the 4 or 5 people, or they had to say
Right,
yes to these 4 or 5 people, or whatever it is. So it's not really one to one. It's really one to many still. It's just limited, right? It's limited
right.
in scope to where the consumer has complete transparency. So yeah, all of our first party clients will be fine. All our second party clients that are making those changes, they're fine. But it's I mean, you've been in some of these calls in some of these rooms where people are like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, there's no way we could only sell something 5 times, and we can't ever give up aged leads, and there's
Right.
no way we can X, Y, or Z." And again, it's just it's going to change, and it's going to have to
Yeah.
change. And I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a divide of people that operate this way and then people that try to operate with unregulated technologies, right? So you go back to hand dialing, hand texting, that type of thing, because you don't need express written consent to do that. So
That's
that's
right.
like, I think that's probably, you're going to see kind of a divergence of like companies who are like, okay, we can get express written consent, and then you can use ATDSs and power dials and auto text and whatnot,
Yep.
or we're going to get an inquiry, which would be kind of the old level of
Right.
consent. And I don't know if it's legally technically an inquiry. That'd be something to ask a lawyer, but then they'll probably sell that lead for less, but then you won't be able to use certain tools, right, to
That's right.
automatically reach out to them. So it becomes a scale problem. So
Yeah.
eventually becomes a business issue, where you just like can't afford to monetize the leads.
Yeah, because the media costs in that instance may go up, so it doesn't make sense for that person to outbound it manually or whatever. I'm sure, like I said, we're all going to witness this play out, in real time, and it's a copycat industry. So once
Oh yeah.
somebody clicks on something, everybody will kind of race to it. That's why we are here with the marketing partners list, is right. Somebody built that, and everybody freaking copied it, and here we are with
Yeah.
10,000 names on everybody's marketing partners list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
Well, that was the whole point. I mean, it's kind of funny if you think back to the reason the marketing partners list existed. It was because it was a way to bury your buyers, right? It was a
exactly.
security from obscurity, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't so you could actually sell the lead 10,000 times. It
Yeah.
was just so like you couldn't come look at my flows and figure out who I'm selling to.
That's right. No, that's right. Quick question too before we jump off compliance, because this is a hot topic in the performance marketing space. I know you guys are heavily weighted in insurance, but I see a lot of debt settlement businesses struggling to get their text through their they've
Oh yeah.
I've and I've is it they're are they being labeled in like there's I've once you fully understand actually what debt settlement does, it really helps consumers that are struggling, right? To pay their bills,
Yep.
to stay on,
Yep.
get their groceries, utilities, uh get gas, etc. Like they can't afford the cost of living today. So these settlement companies are offering to knock off 70, 80, 90%, and consumers are afraid to pick up the phone from a caller, right? Like you said, it could be a collections agency or whatever. They could be behind on their credit cards or just right at that level. But why are the carriers, in your opinion, like blocking these debt settlement companies? Do they just not understand their business model? Is there politics? I mean, is it all of that involved? What's going on there?
There's a couple of different theses, right? Mine is pretty simple. Debt settlement is an easy to market vertical. And what I mean by that is if you hit up 1,000 phone numbers that are in the US, right, or targeted 1,000 people, a very large percent of them could use debt settlement. So
Right,
you think what's the opposite of that, right? Mass tort, right? Talcum powder
right.
cases, something like that,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
or some really really obscure audience. Nobody, no publisher, right? And let me rephrase that. No marketer, who may be doing like unsolicited telemarketing or texting or email, nobody's going to focus on these little audiences, right? These little obscure niche products.
Right.
They're going to do auto warranty, they're going to do debt consolidation, they're going to
Right.
do auto insurance, they're going to do
Wow.
mortgage, right?
Yeah.
They're going to find something that they can blast out, and it's relevant to as many people as possible. And a lot of people are in debt, right? So that is what I think has caused the bad taste in the mouth of the carriers, is that it's a heavily spammed category, like just that
Right.
simple, right? So they look at it, because it's not just we know some of these people, they're clients of ours, right? It's not just the big guys, right?
Yeah.
That are like that set these flags off.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's not the big guys. I'll reword that. It's not the big guys that set these flags off. It's just the fact that it's a heavily spammed vertical, right?
Yeah.
So if you only got
Uh,
5 or 6 or 7 kind of big players, 1 or 2 really big players, and you got a few, pretty good sized players. I mean, there's things like credible.com out there, right? Like these are like
yeah.
massive companies,
Yeah.
there's companies like Freedom, right? There's like massive,
Yeah.
massive, or the Achieve now, massive, massive companies. But I believe they've gotten kind of drugged down by, these, 5-man shops, 10-man shops, 6-man shops who've done a ton of telemarketing, a ton of marketing, a ton of, blasting SMS, email, calls, whatever. And the volume of all those complaints is kind of down here, right? Even
Yeah.
though these guys are doing a good job.
Right.
So we've actually been talking to the DCAs, the direct carrier aggregators, and I think for the right companies doing it the right way, I think there's going to be exceptions made. That's been the signals that I've seen and gotten. Again, the right companies doing it the right way, right? If you don't have
Yeah.
good flows
Here
and
we
first
go.
party and 1-to-1 and all that stuff, they're just going to lump you right in. But they can do special business case reviews. Like that's a thing that's feasible, right? And they can go and apply and ask the carriers, hey, look, we're 1-to-1. Here's our policies. Here's this. Here's that. And that definitely can work. But yeah, so risky financial, I can't remember what they call it, risky financial verticals or something like that is the term they
Yeah.
use now. Before that, it was a thing called shaft. So it was sex, uh, what was it? Hate, alcohol, tobacco, firearms. So you couldn't send stuff about marijuana, right?
Yeah.
Because that would land in the tobacco
Right.
category. So those were all like, you just can't do them. The end. Period. It's illegal. Now they've started adding in these risky uh, personal financial stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I mean, makes total logical sense. Like I have conspiracy theories. I'm like, oh man, like the
Well,
government's
that's the
like,
other one is people
yeah,
think that's the other popular, thesis is like, is it a bank thing, right? So like you get these mega banks, right? And they
exactly.
want to control,
That's
they want to control certain things in the
They
economy.
want
And
people to
like, do
rack
they,
up more debt. We're in
you
record
got it.
credit card debt. We're in record credit card debt. So of course they don't want these people to know that the service is easily accessible. So
Yeah.
they're
So think of
blocking.
the way that, goes, right? You got banks who influence politicians. You got politicians who influence the FCC. You got the FCC who influences AT&T, and AT&T who controls the DCAs and the CTIA and and us,
Here we
relatively
are.
speaking. So I think I'm usually the simplest answer is the right one kind of guy. But
Well,
it could be the banks.
I think you're right though. Like auto warranty is like the poster child for the blast, right? Because like you said,
You got it.
it's such
Everybody's
a
got a
broad
car.
audience. And here we
Yeah.
are, debt is we're a record credit card debt as a country, so it's a broad audience, auto insurance. So thank you for the I think your rationale is probably the right one. I just, of course, I'm always like, man, I want to see this grow, and I'm hoping, like I said, the actions that you're working on with some folks that will definitely help across the house. So that's
Yeah.
great.
I think it's important. I think it's important.
Yeah, dude, I want to shift gears for a sec because if people know AC, this guy freaking has a huge heart. He let me give a little personal story, and then I want to talk about Maui because there's a good connection to Maui and Drips. Um, so first, a personal story. I had a cross country road trip when I was leaving. I moved from Baltimore um, to Scottsdale, Arizona, and I had to plot it out a trip leaving from all the way from Baltimore. First stop was in Ohio, or major stop. Went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, went to the Football Hall of Fame, and then AC stopped and saw him in Akron and met me and my family for dinner. He put us up in the Drips corporate. There at the time, Drips had a corporate housing, so there was a nice apartment. It was beautiful, and put us up there. My kids still talk about it to this day. It was like a major, it felt a home for us. Like that was our
I think
first
we had, I
stop.
think we had breakfast the next day at the office too, right? I think you had
Exactly. You
the
had us in the office.
yeah.
And so I want to share this with everybody. My son Julian bought um a Monopoly board where you can make your own spaces. And Drips is on here as you're right. Drips Drips is on here right there with right next to the Football Hall
That's
of
cool.
Fame. Yeah. So Julian puts you in his we call it Julianopoly. And we play it all the
I
time.
love
We're
it.
like, it helps us remember our spots, and we always talk about Ohio. And you had us in for you guys had a chef at the time at the office. We had breakfast. It was awesome. It was super, super cool. So thank you
Yeah,
for that. I
man.
wanted to share that with everybody because it's such a cool
Uh,
story.
yeah, you're welcome, brother. It would be very different nowadays. You'd be like on the couch here, in my living room with work from home, right?
I love it. I love it. Uh, on a really serious note, when the fires happened in Lahaina, so you talked about Anthony, your partner, and Tom briefly, but Tom lives in the hill
Yeah,
of
he lives.
of
Yeah,
Lahaina,
he's in
lives
Lahaina.
over,
Yep, yep.
yeah. And man, when I had heard about the fires, instantaneously, I texted you, texted Tom. I think everybody was staring at you guys. We all knew how well connected you guys are to the community, especially obviously Tom being there, but you guys immediately came out with fundraising. And it was like, this money's going to go directly to the families that are impacted. Tom took some families in. I know it took a good amount of families in. How much have you guys raised? And also want you to share too. You just came back from a trip there. How is the community doing? And I know it's important for you and Tom and your family. You guys are really well connected to the land. So just tell us how much you raised and like how important it is to you in Maui and how are they doing out there?
Yeah, sure. So for me and so Tom moved down there some time ago, uh, and we visited him. I believe I think it was right in the height of the pandemic. So it was it
Yeah.
2020? Yeah, so yeah, 2020 makes sense. So we spent about a month down there because we're just like, man, it's a pandemic. Like we're stuck
Yeah.
anyway. Like let's be stuck somewhere better
Exactly.
than Ohio in January. So we went down, visited him, and that started our kind of yearly thing. So every year now we spend 2 months down there in Lahaina, right
Yeah.
up the road actually from Tom. And yeah, beautiful place, beautiful people, horrible tragedy. Tom was really just a hero with that whole thing. I mean, his wife and kid. He was actually stateside, uh, running around doing some meetings back and forth with me and some others, and Jessica had to drive. She drove through the fires, dude. I mean, like through them.
Yeah.
She said she saw telephone poles getting ripped out of the
Oh
ground from the
man.
winds, fires jumping from building to building. I mean, it's just a horrific thing that everybody had to go down there, including his family. But yeah, he opened up his house. He stacked racked and stacked some bodies in the house. He has a
Yeah.
very very nice house in a very nice area down
Yeah.
there, and he got the family back to Ohio, and he said, hey, he hit up one of our buddies down there, Alfie, and he said, hey, open up the doors to whoever needs it. Eat my food, wear my clothes, whatever you need. Super cool.
Unbelievable.
And then yeah, he kicked off a GoFundMe, and he has a lot of connections down there. Right? He's a very well networked
Yeah.
guy, and really connected to a lot of people. So that was his big thing. It was like, look, we could raise money and give it to one of these funds or whatever. But he's like, I know these people. He's like, dude, I got 50 families that I want to put $5,000 in each of their bank accounts, and we got damn near there. I think we got about $4,000 in each of their bank accounts. So we
Amazing.
raised over right around 200,000 in a
It's
2 or 3 week time period. And Tom, since then, I mean, I've lost count. I mean, he's raised like
yeah.
literally like $1.5 million or $2 million of grants,
Yeah.
and he's rebuilding buildings, and he's on the board of different architectural groups, and he's setting up community centers, and he's doing all kinds of stuff. But it was really cool, man. We went down, and as soon as somebody knew that I worked with Tom, they were like, "Oh, are you his business partner?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "So you helped him raise the money?" And I was like, "Yeah." And literally five different people were like, "I was one of the people who got that money." You know,
Oh
it
my
was
God.
it was like I get teary eyed just saying it out
Yeah, I
loud
was gonna
now.
say
Like
you
it was
could.
like
Oh my
a
God,
barber, a masseuse I know, somebody
dude.
that works at one of the restaurants, somebody that runs a gym, like literally like everybody, almost everybody I met, he put money in their pocket. And these people, they were some of these they were living in a car in the Target parking lot,
I know,
because they
man.
lost so many, everybody lost everything. The people, it's still a little weird. I think most people are back to work, right? A lot of people. There's still a lot of people living in the hotels. There's a lot of people getting FEMA help to get housed, in vacation homes and things like that. Work's a little weird, like I have a lot of friends down there, and they say, yeah, it's kind of rough, like I'm going back to my one room apartment with my four kids, and then I got to go to work and hear a tourist complain about his $28 cheeseburger is cooked, incorrectly, or
Yeah,
whatever, like so there's. I wish there was more sympathy for what they were going
yeah,
through and what they went through. Maui got hit. Like I kind of think of this as like a two punch, right? Like first it was pandemic, which just rocked them, in a massive way, because all their business is tourism, right? And then you got, as
yeah,
soon as they're starting to recover from that, boom, you get this light, this fire, right? So it's still a little weird, if you went down there and you never knew Lahaina, the city, existed, you probably would never even notice anything was wrong, right? Because they
right.
got all these walls up and it's boarded off, and they're starting to remove the debris and everything. But yeah, man, it's going to be years. It's super sad. But it's gonna be a while, man. They're rebuilding. There's a
Yeah,
lot of pride going
yes,
on, which I think is deserved. And I think for the people. I met a lot of different people down there, and I know a lot of locals, and they look at me and they say, "Hey, man, you're a visitor. You're not a tourist." Like, and that's how they like look at it, right? You're like you're
yeah,
either Kamaana, which is like the people of the island, which is like Tom, like he lives there. He's not
yeah.
local. He's not a local, right? He's not Hawaiian,
Right.
but he's a people of the island. Then you got people like me who I hope that I offer more than I take, right? So I'm a
Yeah.
visitor, and I respect the
Yes.
people there, and I respect the everything down there. And then you got
Yes.
tourists, right? So
The
it's
pure tourists.
there's
They
a
want to
yeah
take.
there's a little head button going on there,
Yeah.
which again I think is justified. People are raw right now. It's going to take some time to heal.
Yeah, dude, thank you for sharing that story. Super special for you and Tom and the Drips team. And it's amazing that you got to meet some of the people that the funds went to really
I, I,
help them get back.
I thought it was amazing. Like, I mean, you donated, like everybody, like so many, everybody on all the boards I've been on, all our clients, our employees, like so many
Yeah.
people, open up their pockets real quick. I thought that was really cool, especially and specifically our employees. Like it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we had employees. I remember somebody donated 5 grand.
Yeah.
We did dollar for dollar
I
donation
saw
matches with
that.
anything an
Yeah.
employee. And I'm just like, man, this is so cool. Like
It
what a
is.
cool culture of a company to be in, that the employees realize how important it is. I mean, it's important anyway, but it's really important
Yeah.
to Tom and I, right? To open up like that. And these aren't, a lot of these people aren't rich, right? And they're still
No.
$100, $200, $300. And I was just, it blew me away. How the percent of the employee group that decided to kick in and help out.
Well, it's a testament to you and your culture and the I know a lot of people that work for you and how much they love and respect you and Tom and what you guys have done together collectively. So I think it's like when we see something that we all love and cherish is our time together is when we can go to the islands. It's just like, giving back to help, when we can. Just a little bit can even go a long way. So it's amazing story, and thank you for sharing it. You know, it's just they got to rebuild, like you said, over time. So it'll be great to witness over the years and do whatever we can to help contribute along the way.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
right.
really,
Even when we go down now, we bring Atlas, our little girl, our 6 year old now. She's six
yeah.
now. You saw her; she was a baby, I think, when you came by. But she's doing beach cleanups and stuff like that. So
Oh,
every time we go down, we're still trying to like I said, be visitors,
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. We're gonna talk about Atlas in a sec, and I'm gonna reel you back in for business real quick, and then I'll let you go because I know you've been here with me for a while, and I really appreciate it. It's getting late back east. Um, AI, everybody obviously is talking about it from a daily interaction with their lives, whether it's business or
Yeah.
just personal or whatever. You guys, again, in general, um, you know, you were one of the first to really implement the use of it in use case in conversational messaging in its early stages. Where do you kind of, and I look at you guys as the absolutely the leader of the pack. Like, um, is there a lot of pressure to constantly stay ahead and evolve and stay
Yeah.
ahead of the game?
Yeah.
And where are you and the geniuses like Tony trying to go now without, like, you don't have to give any secret sauce, but like where are you guys trying to go now to just stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share it. It's man, what an exciting time to be an entrepreneur. Like I'll start with that, right? Anybody who hasn't cracked open ChatGPT, anybody who hasn't isn't paying for ChatGPT Pro or Plus or whatever they call it, $20 a month and using it on a daily basis is just missing out. I mean, it is unbelievable the power and the technology we have access now to.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Like we've done hackathons internally, and we actually use similar models. So like ChatGPT actually isn't the model, right? That's a user interface for OpenAI, which is a company that works with a bunch of different large language models, some of which we actually use and have used for years to do our intent analysis, right? To figure out if somebody says, I'm stuck in traffic, that means they're driving, right? We've actually built up a pretty robust data set that we can use to train and customize our large language models, which is really cool. Now, a lot of big companies, and this is one of the reasons we don't use GPT in that manner. A lot of big companies, they're not comfortable with like any of their data being into that or being or coming from that. They don't want generative AI. They certainly don't want generative texting, talking to their consumers, saying whatever it's going to say.
Yeah.
So honestly, the implementation pieces that we've done, like it's definitely helped us tune our models, right? To
Yeah.
like make sure that we're able to, so like where we used to be able to handle 80% of intents we can match with a 98% certainty. Now maybe it's 92% we can match with a 98% certainty. We still have our human in the loop to catch
Yeah.
anything that's not sure, right?
Right.
So it's helped us just from a cogs standpoint, right? So we can do a little more with less people in the middle, which is great. To stay that automated and stay that, because again, we're doing 1 point something million new conversations a day. So it's a lot,
Amazing.
it's a lot at scale. So even if we can move the needle by 1% from, a better modeling and better AI, that's great. So we're still big Microsoft shop, which they're obviously a big part of OpenAI. But where we're really looking to use it is on conversational insights. So the thing that one of my big theses for drips and our strategy on a go forward is like, yeah, sure, we can do these outcomes, right? We can drive these comprehensive medical reviews and these health risk assessments, or we can just get somebody on the phone for an auto insurance quote, right? Like we still have plenty of that business. We do mostly quote not sold and first party stuff in the insurance space. uh what you can learn from the conversations is pretty invaluable. Like we learned, I did this one study with it was the largest or one of the largest non-standard auto insurance carriers, friends of ours, and I try not to use names. I can't remember who I'm
Yeah.
allowed
Yeah.
to or
No, it's fine.
who I'm not.
Yeah.
But a big one, right? Shaq's their guy, big one. Ryan's with
I know who you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, we did a really cool study where we figured out that 17% of this is for a welcome campaign. It was like
Yeah.
17% of the people who didn't take the happy path, which is just like doing what we want them to do, they couldn't find their ID cards for some reason. So we figured out, I think at the time we figured out that like people that had Androids, that didn't have a certain update, like weren't getting the app the right way or something like that. So it was just like this packaging problem that we found out of nowhere, right? So I think that the outcomes that we can drive are very valuable. We can build business cases for it. We can get paid, and companies are happy with that. But I do think the customer, the voice of customer, and the insights that these
Insights.
enterprises can gather are invaluable. So you could see, I mean, you know, imagine like whatever. You got, say you got Geico, Liberty Mutual, Allstate, and you got two of them who are doing these types of conversations, and you got one of them who is using just a call center, right, or email. And all of a sudden in the conversations, you start seeing State Farm's name pop up more as a competitor. Like now all of a sudden, that State Farm's entering your territory, right? Because they
Yeah.
weren't there yesterday, and all of a sudden they're being mentioned as a competitor more often than they used to be mentioned, right? So you can think of like all those types of things. Or if you something we do, we call exit poll. This is actually really cool. I don't know if you knew we do this. If somebody opts out of a campaign or says they're not interested, we'll say, okay, you've been removed. May we ask why you didn't choose, Acme Insurance or whatever.
Yeah.
So a good surveying tool, a really good one, text, email, whatever, you'll get 4% response rate, right? That's a
Yeah.
that's a pretty good number. We get 45+% on that question. So and it's they give you everything you want. Yeah, you guys are too expensive. Yeah, I went with this company. Yeah, I decided to stay at this other company. Or yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't cover my dog insurance or whatever. So you get all this rich, unstructured data. The thing that LLMs are good for, AI, whatever you want to call it, are for structuring that unstructured data, right? It gets it
Right.
so a computer can use it, so you can run reports off of it versus just being a bunch of words that people said. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. But honestly, when it comes to enterprises and I mean like any enterprise, they are not looking to implement generative AI into their communication tools almost at all. Like they're scared of it. Like so
Right.
we've actually done a really good job, I think, of saying like, look, yes, we use AI. Here's how we use it, but it's controlled, and they can only say the things that you guys have approved it to say, right? So it's like you get the benefit of the machine learning AI and the large language models without the risk of what is it going to say, that we don't know it's going to say. So I think it's gonna be a while until companies implement that type of thing. But we'll be ready for when they do. But yeah, again, back to the first thing I said. What an exciting time! I mean, I'm teaching my daughter how to use it now, Atlas, and I'm doing it on the phone. I don't know if you've done that yet, but if you install ChatGPT on your phone,
Yeah.
man, it is like it's like Tony Stark talking to Jarvis. I'm talking to it about me and Atlas are talking to it about what to name it's her teddy bear, and it's giving her ideas. It's like, well, what kind of things do you like? What's the teddy bear look like? And I mean, it was we could talk for 2 hours about
No, I
AI
love
and
it.
all the implications.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see you continue to help lead the chart. And I agree, like first of all, that's really cool intel on the exit. Most people in sales will tell you, a no is a lot of times more valuable than a yes, right? Because you want to understand why, right? You're at
Sure.
least getting a
Yeah.
response. Almost
Yeah.
50% back. It sounds like it's a simple prompt,
Super
but
simple.
to get
Yeah.
that to get them to respond is great. It's really helping your clients and the insights and but I understand the reason why they want to stay away from it from like their communication from their consumer because it's not fully controlled and regulated yet, and they got to be careful what they say.
Well,
But
well,
I'm
and they
excited.
and they also
Yeah.
know their data if not housed correctly. Like we have to go through
Right.
massive, privacy and vendor diligence things. And if you don't handle their data right, and you're bringing their data into these LLMs, which again we don't do in that way, then all of a sudden you're putting, Acme Insurance's information into these big things where they don't want it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, look, I think anybody, again, if companies aren't using this, they're already behind, right? Like, period. The end. If entrepreneurs aren't using this, you better go get a regular job.
Yeah.
Because then the person that's using it, Joey, I'm telling you, man. Like, just as an example and an aside, I bought a pretty nice rental property, and it was I'm going to do like midterm rentals. It was a house that me and Annie
Yeah.
wanted, and it finally came up for sale, so we just bought it. So I'm like, well, I don't want to live there yet. I want to live there when I'm old.
Yeah.
So we're doing like a midterm rental thing, and within 20 minutes, I had a whole business plan, brand names, available domain names, logo ideas, ICP, definition. I mean, it was insane what I was able to get in 20 minutes with a session with ChatGPT. Would it took me a week worth of work,
Do it all, yeah,
alone.
manually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It does. The thing I think it does is it takes 80% of the work out of a lot of things. It
Right.
doesn't do 100% of the work yet. Eventually it'll do 90% and then 95%, but it takes 80% of the work out of the stuff, and if you're an entrepreneur, this, you've been a serial entrepreneur for a long time. Like it's all about like just trying more stuff until you figure out
Right.
something that sticks. And I always tell people like if you especially young entrepreneurs. I coach a lot of young entrepreneurs now, and I always say because they're always scared to start something or try three things at once. I'm like, look, you can't win if you don't start, and you can't lose if you don't quit. And to me, that's been an ethos that I try to like bake into my daughter, and like teach her like, look, you can't lose if you don't quit, right? That's
Yeah.
how I was successful with drips. It wasn't because I had a great idea with drips. It's because I had 27 other businesses beforehand. I had five other businesses when we started Drips, and Drips was the one that caught. Some of the other ones did okay, right? But
Right.
you just got to keep pumping it out. And I think AI is a really really good way that it's going to allow a lot of people to try more things more quickly.
Yeah. Oh, dude, thank you so, so much. Everybody follow AC Evans on LinkedIn, follow Drips. A lot of good content coming out. There you can see which shows they'll be at, how to communicate with the team there. Really, really good people. I know a lot of folks that work there, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on with me today. You mentioned Atlas. There was a viral video of Atlas when she was a baby going on it was a Roomba,
Yeah, yeah, the Roomba baby.
and
Yeah.
it went viral. How's the family doing? Any other secrets you want to share with us?
Uh, no, man. She's no longer a baby. She's picking up climbing and
Oh,
boxing and jujitsu, and our little boy Winter, he's a terror. He's just 2 years old doing what 2-year-olds do.
that's
um
it.
Everybody's good though, Joey, happy
Good,
and healthy. you
good.
know um
Great to hear.
just excited to be doing what we're doing, and well, yeah, that's it, man.
That's awesome. No,
I mean,
thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on, brother. I really, really appreciate it. AC is such a good friend, and it just means a lot that you came on, and I'm excited
yeah,
to
of
get this
course.
out there on
Yeah, and one
YouTube
more
and
thing just to
yeah,
share, like,
please.
especially all this FCC stuff, and
Yeah,
there's other new rules with revocation. I don't know if you're tracking that one, but that's a nasty one for
I
companies to
saw that.
navigate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're always, and when I say we, I mean like not just Drips employees, but myself as well. Like, we're always happy to consult, right? Like, always. I mean, like we have mutual friends who started texting
Yeah.
companies who I consulted with, and
Yeah.
helped them deal with carrier issues, right? So always happy, just because we might not be the right fit to service somebody, that's smaller or just get started or whatever. Like, I'm always happy to guide them in the right way. So my email is ac@drips.com. If anybody has questions or struggles that are dealing with, especially and specifically in the SMS space, like, always happy to share my insights and hopefully save some people some time and trouble.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah, it's communication over the next, 9 months or whatever. It's going to be critical for everybody. So,
Yeah, we're going to be
really, and
putting out a
you're
mountain of content on that.
good.
The
You're
revocation piece specifically is going to be, we're going to have, I mean, I think we have like a 6-month content roadmap or something
yeah.
planned for that. So we're going to be, maybe you'll be on one of our webinars next
I would love
for that
that.
specific one.
Well, paired up with your decisioning engine, I mean, that's like the one-stop shop.
Yeah.
It's like for you on the front end and then the revocation piece. Like, obviously, guys, like if you haven't taken any action yet, you should, start looking at um how drips
Start
can help you
testing,
out.
right?
Yeah,
Start testing.
exactly.
Yeah. That's the big
Exactly.
thing. Start testing.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, man. I'll see some of your team out at the show. I'll give them some hugs and
Of course.
tell the family I said hello. Thanks for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your night and appreciate you as always, brother.
All right, Joey. Thank you, man.